Okay, hey, how's it going? Welcome to TB at 23. Today I'm talking about possibly where things are going, what's going on with the plane, and I think what happened with the plane was actual case of directed energy weapons, and I don't actually think that say I don't actually think that um, say the 9/11 towers were brought down through scalar weaponry or directed energy weapons. I think that the towers were actually brought down through thermitic cutter charges, and then saying that they were brought down through laser beams is basically the disinformation. But there's something very important to know about directed energy weapons, and that's their infeasibility as disarmament, or basically when they did the Space Wars program, which was supposed to be the attempt to use directed energy weapons to detonate nuclear devices and stuff like that. It was actually quite simple for them to. It was actually simple for them to combat that by spinning the rocket and releasing a mist, and that was enough to actually block. And because you have to understand something, directed energy, even like directed sound waves or directed laser waves or heat or radiation, they're directing something at you, which is ultimately the smallest thing in the universe. And so it's powerful. Yeah, I mean, like if there's a nice clear sky and they wanted to burn something or burn a hole through something, they certainly can do it. However, if you were safeguarding against such a thing, it's very simple, and they do have the capacity for it, because you're not going to go around putting preventative laser beam measures all over the place. But essentially, as soon as the smoke starts coming out of it, you immediately have an issue with the effectiveness of the laser, because you can break up the effectiveness of the laser, no matter how hot it is, by simply getting the radiation to impact smoke particles, mist particles, whatever. Now, let's talk about what happened with the plane. So the thing is that the witnesses saw the tail fall off, and then they began to put different information out there. And I just recently received information from somebody that, well, actually, I saw it on the news first. They said that they were getting people out of the water because the people ran into the water out of concerns that they had chemical burns. And then I just heard that some of the people came out of that situation with like severe rashes, and they're calling it rashes because what really happened was they had severe radiation burns. And you can clearly see that there's some sort of discrepancy when it comes to the the way the burn happened, because nobody inside recalls any fire. And in fact, the one witness that we have from the plane speaking actually says that the roof fell in on them, and this suggests, or like the roof fell in on them, yeah, essentially, before they on their way out, and this suggests that the fire was in fact, say, like literally they were burning the top of the plane, and they would be burning the top of the plane with with radiation weapons, and then subsequently, say, radiation got inside or came through, and it would basically have either, maybe it was penetrating, and it basically gave them radiation burns. And who knows how many people actually got exposed to that, but probably some of them did. So what they did, and it's really unfortunate, and I hope that they make up a pilot's name and they don't blame this specific pilot, because it's not the pilot's fault, and they know that. But basically, the pilot is the reason that they're alive. So that pilot actually put out an emergency call, I think like 3 minutes before I don't know if it's 3 minutes or something, it was a significant amount of time. Like he actually put in an emergency call before he got close to landing. And what probably happened was the tail literally got chopped off. So it wasn't 3 minutes, but it was a significant amount of time before he actually touched down. So he puts out an emergency call, basically the power structure, and I'll tell you why they did this later, but the power structure cuts the tail off of the plane. That's why people said, I saw the landing gear come down, and then all of a sudden the tail fell off, or came off, and that's unfortunate because there were actually like people in the tail. Apparently there were, how do I say, like the waitresses or flight attendants or whatever they call them. So I bet you that's where the, well, whatever. And then the pilot then, now the pilot could have, apparently the plane cartwheeled, and the reason it cartwheeled was that there was no more rudder. So there's nothing controlling your ability to is that called yaw? Yeah, I think it's either pitch or yaw. The plane, and so with no rudder, the sucker's just spinning around. Okay, so what it does is, like the pilot could have freaked out and pulled up, and this would have been crappier because there's no rudder, and he would have ended up spinning around nosediving. So he's holding it just flat, and it comes down and glides across the sand, and but the trail that you see is shit spilling out the back of the plane. So anyway, like I haven't actually got to examine the entire wreckage scene, and I don't think that I really don't know. It's just, you know, some of the more obvious aspects of the cover-up would be not just the eyewitnesses who saw a tail fall off in the process of landing before there was touchdown. Like Fox News at 3:30 p.m. that day literally said, we had one witness on just now, and she told us that the tail fell off prior to landing. So that would basically explain this cartwheeling, and I wonder if it really did a cartwheel like this, you know, because I don't know. Anyway, what I'll say is the pilot is, if I'm right, the pilot needs to be congratulated for basically saving all those people's lives. And the top of the plane was apparently shot with lasers, maybe right there on the ground, causing the people to get burned inside. And they didn't witness any fire, so the burning basically occurred afterwards. And anyway, the top of the roof fell in on them, and it's like, wait, so how is that burning over here when you got the tail broken off over there? So anyway, then you've got people running into the water thinking they had chemical burns. The thing was shot with microwaves or something like that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is why do they do that? Well, there's other things. There's an oil tanker, like a train oil tanker that blew up in Quebec either sometime later, and guess what? Like 5 minutes after or before that plane caught fire, another plane caught fire in Athens, Greece. So, you know, it was the same make and model, basically. And is there significant persons on these planes? Maybe. Or maybe what's going on is they've become so cornered, and there's so many powerful people waking up. There's so many insiders turning on them that what they're having to do is basically pull stunts like this to compromise at a distance. So you're about to go public, you've got this whole scheme going on, and then through like massive surveillance system, they know you're about to do it, and then you get a little note slipped under your door, and it says, watch flight 212 at so-and-so time. You know, you better not do anything, zap, zap. And then all of a sudden, like, an incident happens, and then you kind of get this thing like, oh shit, they can kill me right now kind of thing. And, you know, that's always the case. But what that kind of shows is that, you know, because there's a large part of the power structures operating under the premise that this is for everyone's good. And so you can't really start pissing everybody off. And feasibly what that shows is it doesn't show strength. It shows that they've been cornered into such a position that they have to pull that kind of stuff off to compromise at a distance. They have to compromise people at a distance. And certainly when people hear such things, they are very quickly compromised. I was almost compromised. I was like, well, shit, they're just going to zap me right out of my car one day. Well, the thing is that what it seems that they're doing, I think, is just having a smooth landing. You know, they're bringing down the conspiracy, but they're bringing it down on their own tempo. They're bringing it down, and what they're doing is they're going to like bring it down. They may even like tell themselves that they showed you, and I mean there are arguments that it could be warranted. It could be like, okay, there's this, you know, I'm not going to entertain that. I don't want them to feel like they can continue this or anything like that. But you know, they had always planned on controlling the conspiracy theory, but even I knew that you would never be able to do that because you just saw how, you know, because I think the nerve points are who's behind it, and they wanted to control a conspiracy, which was something like the Saudis or Obama or whatever. They wanted to pick out who were going to be the bad guys. They didn't want it to be them. And unfortunately, Ron Paul, I would say what happened was they allowed Ron Paul to foment a revolution, and unfortunately, in the process, a lot of people, through the use of the internet, and specifically like Ron Paul's, you know, antics, caused them to tap into the nerve points, and so you basically have not a revolution against, say, Islam or an uprising against the Saudi royalties only. I mean, yes, these things need to be, say, dealt with in some way, but it's not the crux. It's not the true cause. And despite their greatest efforts to do so, it's not going to work. So what's really going on is the entire thing is coming down, but everybody wants to kind of be safe and get away with it. And so what they're doing is they're compromising people from a distance before they cause too much damage. So we're watching a slow, smooth landing, basically. So we have to keep up the resistance. We kind of have to keep up with what they want us to believe in, which is like McCain going after Obama for the Benghazi incident. So, you know, I guess just kind of go along with it. But it's very worrisome because they could always piggyback a war agenda or something on top of it. But, you know, are we at risk of a nuclear false flag or something like that? I really don't think so, because I think any attempt to do another major false flag at this point, because they're already bringing about concepts of false flags, will inevitably radicalize a very large percentage of people and deconvert or convert a lot of the insiders, say, against these nerve points. So they know, they essentially, you know, have probably thrown that out, because right now they are kind of concerned about their, say, souls or whatever. I don't know, but I would suppose so. I'm sure that there's certain things freaking them out. And when it really boils down to it, the quantum computing and the quantum telecommunications, which are completely unmonitorable, you know, and at the same time kind of like, let me explain something. Once quantum computing comes around, there is no more internets. There is no more centralized internet security. Like, in other words, if you leave your passwords or to your bank accounts, I mean, people are going to have to start freaking out pretty soon. I mean, because when quantum computers will basically crack your passwords, and like whenever you put in a password, say with somebody's server, what goes on is it encrypts your, I forget the name, Despa, or whatever, in a certain way that makes it very hard. Like, it takes basically a lot of processes, mathematical processes, to figure out what your password is on their server. And so once quantum computing comes around, somebody has, like, say, WordPress or something like that, you use the same password, you run a quantum computer on that encryption, and they'll find out what your password was, and they'll be able to log into your bank accounts and all kinds of things. So quantum computing is about to flatline a bunch of what you see going on, and so it's very scary. It's not exactly publicly accessible right now. I'm going to check and see if there's any comments. 11 new comments. Update automatically. We talking scalar shit. I don't actually know what scalar is, to be honest with you. People talk about it like going, you know, backwards in time or something like that. No, I'm talking just microwave lasers. All right. You look 12 tonight, Piri. Oh boy. Kinatar. Not saying you're wrong, but never mind lasers. Old hat. When I hear directed energy, I think of scalar wave weaponry. Yeah, the thing is I just don't understand scalar wave weaponry, and there's just a lot of talk about, like, I don't know, it sounds like tachyon stuff, like going backwards in time or something like that. I really just don't know. I don't think there's anything such like that. Why not just regular lasers? All right. Audioation, radiation. Yeah. Auto refresh the comments. Let's see. Y'all. Terry says, we won't be allowed our alternative fine tooth comb on this one, methinks. They are going to officially vilify this pilot, already claiming he had 43 hours. Yeah, that's what they're going to do. They're not going to say it's the plane, because they have to, like, keep people, you know, flying basically. So they're going to say it's the pilot's fault, but it won't be that pilot. It's going to be hard to sort of like get everyone to understand that it wasn't that pilot, but everyone on the inside and right there in the airport that would know things know that that pilot was really a hero, and you know, assuming that I'm right, and will essentially, they'll use some other guy's name or some other guy's identity, and they'll probably pay him a lot of money and send him off to some sort of mansion or something like that, basically compromise that person. I haven't seen anything but crappy footage on this one. That's right, you know. So they certainly have the ability to run they basically merge actual footage with CGI footage, and they have, I know because they staged a cell phone video for Aurora. Want to come here, buddy? And they staged a cell phone video for Aurora, and that shit looked really realistic. And I doubt that they actually they just, never mind. I just know that they have the technology basically to reproduce very realistic settings. I think some of the Bin Laden videos may even be the result of some of that technology being used. So what they do, and that's interesting too, they might just put out very unrealistic looking CGI in movies, specifically for the purpose of keeping you from thinking that CGI is realistic enough to do what they did. But it was blurry as crap, you know. And I suppose somebody could very easily take issue with, like, why was he filming right then? I just don't even think they cared. They were just like, you know what, we're going to put out this cell phone video to back up the story of the tail impacting the seawall. And it's kind of like, there's some weird stuff here, like the tail impacted the seawall. First off, if it kicked up that much dust, and if people got out of there in like 90 seconds, how did the witness see people 500 yards away, quote unquote, 500 yards away, like limping where the tail fell off? And, you know, so if all that dust got kicked up, basically either the witness's testimony is compromised or coached. I think the only person that you got to hear from that plane legitimately is that little kid. And that little kid's testimony is just like, the tail fell off, and we were spinning, and then, you know, he's barely making any sense, and then he's like, then the roof fell in on us, and so, you know, like, that's probably the best testimony we're going to get out of that one. Let's see. They're going, I haven't seen anything but crappy footage on this one. That's right. Check out the audio Barbarians of the New World Order on YouTube. Screwing up transport and infrastructure is the game plan. The simple fact of the matter is that implementing, like they want the system to work. It's not that they don't want the system to work. They've always, the whole justification for the massive amounts of, say, compromisation of individual sovereignty or sovereignty of the nations has to do with believing that they're there to make the system work. And they don't have any, like, people bring up fears of, you know, if Atlas shrugged, basically. And those things are there, but But you know, like I really think, you know, simply when Atlas shrugs, they're the ones that basically we're free. You know, people say stuff like, "Oh, the dollar's going to crash. It's going to suck if the dollar crashes," and I'm like, "Bring it on." You know, it's like a Joker mentality, basically. But you know, I just that's basically what it may take to get some justice, or to stop systematic child torture, or to stop, you know, mass dumbing down of the public, or whatever. You know, I'm not a terrorist, but you know, certainly I don't care about the, say, like I'm confident that the implications of telling people that 9/11 was, say, a conspiracy, you know, and making that like an official stance would actually be beneficial. Like they say things like, "Oh, society will fall apart. People don't know how to govern themselves." And it's kind of like, well, if they don't know how to govern themselves, it probably has to do with the fact that they're not well informed. And you know, you're not teaching them to be informed, or you're not guiding them in any way. And in fact, you are systematically dumbing them down and keeping them from you know, keeping them from having general systemic knowledge that would keep them alive as individuals. And you know, you do this for purposes of domination. So let's see. They worry much less about the public at large converting. Wait, what's this say? Not sure the Nairobi flight, the Greek fire on the plane, was connected, honestly. Yeah, I haven't checked that out, but somebody did say there was a fire on a plane of the same make and model around the same time that happened in Athens. So, you know, that and the firefighters that died. And, you know, some of these fires that happen in Colorado are literally just like, they're just like random apartment buildings that are just burning. And it's kind of like, what happened there? Did somebody drop a cigarette in all these random apartment buildings? And then it's like, no, it's from the wildfires. Well, you know, how about maybe somebody wasn't, somebody connected wasn't shutting up, and they shot some lasers at the roof of their apartment complex or something like that. So I really don't know, but there have been massive wildfires in Colorado, and like massive wildfires, like people were dying and evacuating all over the place. Like Colorado has like extremely national newsworthy news coming out of it like every day. Like I think there was a situation where a dude took on a SWAT team like yesterday or the day before, and then there's another situation where all of these pieces are missing, which would help people's water supplies in Aurora not get contaminated. So somebody's stealing things that is purposely contaminating people's water supply. And there's just a bunch of weird stuff, and I think that shows that there's that the people in Colorado, like, and then there's like, they're all buying magazines because they know it's about to be banned, and like the gun shop owners are, you know, questioning whether or not they'll actually buy those things back from the public. So the people in Colorado are really on the front lines of the fight, and they are resisting, and the news is just getting local coverage, and even then it's highly compromised. I mean, there's clearly a battle going on in Colorado, and Coloradoans understand that they're on the front lines because they have like basically a confirmed corrupt power structure over there. And maybe a lot of the stuff that you see going on a national level have to do with either smoke screening, or, and it leaks in Texas as well, but either smoke screening or diverting specifically from the situation that is hitting federal powers with, you know, emanating from Colorado specifically, with the Evan Ebel incident and everything. I do have videos on that. So, you know, the people are doing what they can to resist, to such an extent that they may be getting into shootouts with SWAT teams over there. So, you know, let's go ahead and keep looking. They worry much less about the public at large converting than they do mutiny from their own. Yeah. Yeah, I would say that, but I'd say that the mutiny from their own, even though it's a little bit easier to control them rather than, say, a bunch of sheeple, because, you know, you can compromise somebody who doesn't understand what it's like to be a nobody, basically, and because they're so fearful of that, they have so much to lose. But there's not just that, but it's just easy to target somebody when they're well known. So the thing is that, but there's also, like, if you insiders converting or deconverting to supporting the resistance are extremely volatile. I'm sure that everything that they tweet or do or upload or say is highly, highly monitored. And if they do something, like, there's actually like a time delay, basically. If they go to do something, it will mysteriously not go through. And it's just like that funny joy camp thing where they go to do it, and then right before they actually get to do it, they end up dead or suicided or compromised or whatever. It says, all right, yeah, a lot of infighting going on. What else to expect from a nest of vipers and scorpions, though? That's correct. But things like, say, space-based or satellite-based laser weaponry would suggest that a lot of these insiders are good people that are just, they realize the almost omnipotence or omniscience of these bad guys, and have given in, or think that there's no ability to resist, and it doesn't seem like they're bad, but it comes through the revelation of, no, they are bad, and that is breaking the law, and this is like James Bond gone bad, or a James Bond movie with no James Bond, basically. And the bad guys have, created such systems, and yes, they're powerful, but that doesn't mean that you can't resist, and so naturally the resistance is producing the effects that you see now. But I mean, they always have the option of sort of like, I mean, I think that they're legitimately worried, and they're like, human productivity has been shot to shit. I'm tired of getting everything I want, and I get to walk out of this, and then having essentially, they might say that we maintain stability, even though they cause so much instability, but in the process they might say they maintain stability, that they threw out tyrants, that they taught us tolerance, that they taught us scientific, they were able to get rid of dogmatism, that, they could basically tell themselves that they did a lot of good, but a lot of that's engineered, and people just need to remember that. You can't allow the progression of literal slavery to go on. So they always had they either had it as a fail-safe or fallback position, or they had it as some sort of like planned uprising that they would have pulled with the Obama card. But it was always meant to come down. It's going to come down, and I would say that we've learned a lesson. Essentially, I would say that we have learned the values of the Bill of Rights. That we've learned the values of, and honestly, I think that once you get rid of your psychopaths, it will naturally get better. I really just don't want to say that any good came out of it, to be honest with you. I think all things are necessary, but there is no justification for capturing a child and torturing the child, and they essentially, they have not made up for that yet, and the only way that they will make up for that is to feasibly undo what they have done. I love that. I suggest, if anyone's like a deconverting bad guy, to listen to What I've Done by Linkin Park. I will literally break down and cry when it gets to that hook at the last part where he goes, Um, I'll start again, and no matter what pain may come, today this ends. And it is. I just got chills saying it. Somebody, some sort of muse possessed that kid, and he wrote that lyric right there. It's so powerful. I mean, like, you've got to become conscious. You've got to become alive, and you've got to do what's right. And you may think you know what's right, but let me go ahead and tell you, like, literally implanting truth in people is what's right. If you're lying to people, you're basically manipulating and or controlling that person. And so we're a bunch of mental slaves, basically. So let's see, hold on. Quantum is going to flip the script completely. Yeah, I think so. I think quantum computing is going to be like purely analog. Like you can't. Well, first off, you won't be able to. You could if you wanted to store stuff, but you don't have to. So you wouldn't. There's nothing being stored, and there's nothing being intercepted, because quantum computing is like fabric of reality communications, and it'll be instantaneous. It'll open up gateways to other universes, quite literally. Once we establish radio contact with, say, another life form, you basically create a quantum teleport. Like, you'll literally be able to teleport after, well, it'll take some time. It takes massive processing power to teleport something via quantum teleportation. But, hey, we got quantum computers, so maybe the... I mean, like, we'll basically... When we take down, or when the Cabal is done, and we begin this new age, it'll be like massive scientific progress very, very quickly. And it's going to take some organizing, basically, but quite simply put, it'll just it'll be like technologies are occurring like super fast, and it'll be like a big joyride. I'm sure, like, when people were growing up in the 60s or 50s or whatever, it was like awesome music every day and awesome technologies, and everything was about the world of tomorrow, and everybody got to feel, all the men got to feel like they were actually like real men because they were part of this working system, and, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it'll be like that again. We'll finally be free, and free to expand and grow, and to feel proud of what we do and who we are, instead of being forced to listen to Rihanna all around the world, you know what I mean? Like, which is pretty amazing. I mean, we will look back. It'll be looked at as a time of the dark ages for the human species, and the fact that we escaped it at the nick of time will be testament to the essentially like a spiritual, you know, or not that, but like that there's a bigger picture, and that there is it'll be similar to conceptions of like God, because it'll be like that there is a bigger picture, and there's something, there's a reason that we live. We're not just some random chemical reaction on the surface of the planet, but there's something that connects us to the entire universe as a whole. And I mean, just simple analysis of dimensions will enable that wisdom. But let's see. Kespe, I gotta get up to speed on this quantum computing stuff. Yeah, man, quantum computing has been bought by the private sector, and Google owns it, and among other companies. And that's really a good sign, because what it suggests is a lot of the resistance is already using quantum computing to get done what they're getting done. And you could actually understand how hacking does take place. Or, you know, I actually wonder if Snowden is some sort of an archetype. Maybe he's not just a honeypot. Maybe he started out as a honeypot, but maybe he's an archetype for insiders within the NSA who are resisting the cabal. And you know, I don't know. Maybe he is, but I will tell you this: they're having a very hard time controlling the uprising, and that's why news is so slow right now. The news is very slow because their plans are being like interrupted, and they're also having to essentially change plans because they're realizing how they're getting their predictions wrong. They've probably realized since the Connie operation, since the Connie 2012 video, that they have no clue just how the informed public is capable of resisting the typical methods of manipulation after, say, 9/11, basically. So, you know, it's a matter of, I mean, like, I just, you know, we all want to see change and we all want to see things happening, but maybe the fact that things are not happening could be a good sign. And the amount of resistance you see naturally welling up in the people, because it was planned. I mean, they were like, okay, the summer's going to come, and all of the parents are going to be home, and all of the disillusioned college kids are going to be home, and they're all going to have all of this time to contemplate the notions of conspiracy with Boston bombing and the Sandy Hook, and you know, conspiracies against the Constitution. And it was, you know, I mean, when you saw Obama get in office, you saw where things were going to go. I think I even had like a post on GOP that was like the guide to voting as a conspiracy theorist. And if you voted for Romney, then you were like a dumbass because you were voting for somebody who was establishment, who was going to placate everybody, like Jones said, go back to sleep, and ultimately possibly vilify the Constitution by doing a really shitty job of trying to implement it. And everybody would have lavished Obama as having been great and Romney was shitty and stuff. And so when Obama, but then you vote for Gary Johnson and you try to like represent, so to speak, or you vote for Obama, this is assuming votes even matter, or you vote for Obama and you basically do so in order to wake people up, basically. And essentially when Obama got into office, it was very clear to me at that time. I was like, oh, well, they plan on, you know, controlling a conspiracy, and I thought this as early as well. I thought this before Benghazi. I remember thinking like, ooh, I said Aurora went to shit, or the Sikh temple went to shit, or the FRC shooting went to shit, and I was like, I wonder if what they're going to do is because they would naturally have to compromise so many people, they're going to make things fishy, and they're going to control an uprising or control a conspiracy theory. So let's keep going. Nah, Scalar can have things to do with time travel, but nah, weapons. Yeah, I really just don't know anything about scalar weaponry. I would rather just stick to typical electromagnetic explanations like lasers or microwaves. So I feel really bad. I think the people that were in that plane were basically cooked, and that's why they ran into the water. It's not funny, but yeah, I think that's what happened. I think some of them got struck by the radiation. So, says, sorta takes a lot of Tesla background. Damn. Oh my God, there's so many comments coming in. Let's see. Takes a lot of Tesla background. Yeah, Tesla was an interesting person. I'm sure that Tesla's thing was understanding the Earth's magnetic field, and he was very much interested in tapping into that. Let's see, damn the cheating out. If you are right on the energy weapon theory, then with the plane here, we can expect a lot of hush-hush, a vomiting of lots of weak coverage, etc. That's right. Essentially, yeah. So the reason they covered it was that it was a warning. It was a warning to a lot of people. Be careful. We have space lasers. Zap, zap, zap. So don't cause more damage than we're willing to dish out ourselves. And because a lot of people were probably getting all, ooh, let's do this resistance thing, and I'm glad that they're doing it. And it's really great that they're doing it. But that was basically a warning shot. You know, a few warning shots. Okay, that sounds like every conspiracy, honestly. What are you talking about? Just got here. Talking about. I'm talking about the plane possibly being, uh, basically destroyed through space-based laser weapons, just because of the discrepancies in the witness testimony. That, and then they staged a cell phone video that they cut the tail off with space-based laser weaponry, and it put that sucker into a spin because there's no rudder. And it was really the pilot that saved everyone's life, because he could have very easily screwed that one up. But he didn't, and actually a lot of people ran out of the plane. Actually, the roof fell in on them, so it was to explain the fire coming from the top. And the people ran out of the plane and ran into the water, because specifically the news said that they were concerned they had chemical burns, and lo and behold, they end up with like severe rashes, but it wasn't really rashes. They had radiation burns, and I think that that basically this is a warning shot by the powers that be to insiders who needed to be convinced of why they need to, chill on their resistance, basically. And just like basically this is just massive damage control, controlled implosion of the conspiracy, and we have to keep a close eye on what's going on. But I'm sure that any brash movements will not go in the direction that they really want it to go, and ultimately, I don't think that they're trying to save the conspiracy. It's clear that they're doing a lot of damage to the conspiracy itself, or the control structure itself. It is literally an attempt to survive the awakening of the people, and that's all they're doing. And it's because there's just a lot of stuff that the empire is basically dissolving, and they might even play like, that's not the real empire. The real empire has always been the pro Bill of Rights empire, and we just did this nasty empire for the past 100 years to teach you the values of the real empire, or something like that. I mean, whatever. And so that's what they're going to do. I mean, but what you want is freedom. What you want is opening competition with the Federal Reserve. Period. You do not want people valuing their signatures, the signatures that they produce at Infinite. And once that's over, I mean, it's pretty much over. I mean, we're free. So there's a lot of dynamics, like weapons of mass destruction and stuff like that. But essentially, when you end the people will not be bought off. People will basically be able to do what they want, and collaborative efforts like deciding when a nuke goes off will naturally people will be able to talk at that point. And so it's all about bringing down the Federal Reserve, basically, and just the central banking system in general. And I'm certain the Rothschild family at some point will want to be seen in a positive light, and I would caution against that. I would have to say, like, I don't know, like, I mean, it's kind of scary, but the Rothschild family will need to, like, we're eventually at some point going to have to start some kind of like a forgiveness movement, because when it boils down to it, they're very concerned about having the world having a negative perception over them, and they may want to play like they were the wise owls that guided us along this way, but you don't want to corner them, because you ultimately do want it to end in some way, and certainly they don't want to be in a bad position with the rest of humanity. So we have to like be willing. I think we're going to have to be willing to make a compromise, like a literal case of forgiveness. And I know that everybody has a very bitter taste in their mouth for that, but if that's what it takes to end it, I think that's what will have to happen. And certainly they would be chased. They would be chased to the corners of the earth, and they would have to basically kind of go into hiding, or be sort of unrecognizable, or go somewhere where they can live out their lives where they will not be recognized. And but anyway, the human race will take off naturally, and I would say all sorts of things are possible. I don't necessarily like immortality, but immortality, but resurrection would be possible. Because I'm going to tell you, immortality would basically suck. Like, what if you got buried alive? Then you wouldn't die. Or what if you got flung out into space? Well, then you wouldn't die. So you kind of want to die. What you want is to be terminable, but you want to be resurrectable, essentially. So it would be like sleep, basically, when you die. And that is effectively what it is to be conscious and what it is to be alive. And you will be resurrected into more favorable conditions. That is essentially what's going on. Obviously, if you're a very, very bad person, you would want to be concerned, because I don't know the dynamics of the resurrection process, but you may be subjugated to servitude or eternal torment, or a very long period of torment, or any manner of things that maybe, or maybe you won't be resurrected at all, and death will be final for you, and that would be scary. So, you know, there is probably a spiritual incentive to turn things around. Looking at the comments now, let's see, if you are right on the energy weapons, that sounds like okay, what are you talking about, Sky? Tail fell off, then we were spinning. That sounds key. If the shit fell off post-landing, the spinning would be prior to its coming off. Seems they were straight away after the touchdown. Well, the way that they wanted to portray it was that the tail breaks off on the seawall. First off, if it breaks off on the seawall, what they said was what they're trying to portray is that it broke off on the seawall and then the plane like bounced up. So break, bounce, flies up, and then spins around. This is just not what was reported earliest. In fact, you actually have him declaring an emergency before he lands. So, you know, basically they staged a bunch of stuff, and you know, I'm not going to get into it because they were very effective at the cover-up. Let's see. I prefer Patriotic Good Samaritan. Same time, same model, very common though, but was reported smoke, diverted landing degrees, all was well. That's right. So, got some more stuff here. Colorado is special, so is Nebraska, and all four corner states. Lots of dumbs all over, granted, those are deep underground military bases. But those said states are headquarters. I would imagine that powers that be own most of the weapon and ammo companies. Think Denver Airport. If you look at what is the new gunpowder will do to old, stable forever ammo prices, the big ammo press of the hills of Sandy and Aurora makes a lot of extra sense. A lot of folks are making a lot. Certainly, but I mean, you see, the problem with an armed public is that you have a very, you have a chance for like revolution, assassination, incapability of false flagging. You know, you don't really want an armed public. I think it's even in the protocols to disarm everyone. So to see a rebounding or an inability to disarm is truly a strike against the foes. I'm not a bad guy, no, but I am not a good one either. Oh no, it's okay. Let's see. A blend and balance of science and nature. A focus upon goodwill towards all men as equals. Yeah, I mean, the important part is, you know, it's not even, I mean, good works are a lot, but it's really just your dispositions. I mean, you want, you know, if you're disposed to doing what's right when the time is right, then essentially you can't be blamed, right? People say, you know, you go to save the girl, but somebody predicted that you would go to save the girl, so what they did was they set, like, let's say, a trigger to blow up a building, and they knew that as you went to save the girl, it would trigger a blowing up of the building. That's not your fault. You know, you didn't intend for the building to blow up. Somebody played off of your sympathies to blow the building up. It's all about your virtues, your dispositions as a person. And, you know, some people out there they have dispositions which are like, I see a child and I'm going to do what I'm going to make sure that that person or that child gets abducted, and I'm going to, you know, torture that person. It's like that sort of disposition will basically damn your soul. So you have to like do what it takes to sort of get rid of that, not justify it, but rather reverse what you did by destroying the system that you built, which allowed you to do that. And you know, I don't know the dynamics of saving your soul, but it's a lot more than just simple magical words being said, which I'm sure people will interpret. A blend of... Okay, let's go ahead and check the news and see what's going on there. So I see some more comments. A blend of balance in science and nature. Okay, is what comes after that is. We are in the dark ages. Yeah, exactly. People will view us as, well, stupid in the way we consider folks because stupid, discounting actual truthful history. The internet has backfired on the cabal big time. Agreed. It's hot. Lost of lots of mosquitoes. LOL. People get fussy mid-July and August. I voted for Mickey Mouse. Ooh, Benghazi. Yeah. Still gotta toss my Benghazi at you later. Yeah, I gotta hear that. If you look closely at the virtual escape, literally, of DARPANET, it's Cleat. The internet was not meant to reach us the way it did. Certainly, that's true. Actually, the dude who supposedly created the internet, I can't remember his name, has literally said the government is using the internet against you. So, you know, the original intentions of these things were noble. And I think after 9/11 happened, the true, like a very bad part kind of weeded out that stabilization factor good part of the people, and the actual nature of the cabal reared its ugly head after 9/11. So 9/11 was significant because, I mean, there was a lot of cabal assets in those towers, and that really kind of showed you. And like a lot of things got attacked, like MTV, Viacom, and all sorts of things. Generally good and a very sinister aspect of the control structure took over. And 9/11 was the 9/11 was essentially a coup by the really, really bad aspects of a conspiracy. All right, let's see. Hi, hello, Scott Ellison. Steve Simmons. This is really the best, most up-to-date with reality show I've ever seen. We need more TVs. Thank you, Steve. Definitely. If you guys want to start, you know, getting on Google Plus and then joining me in the middle of the session where we can actually talk to each other like a show or something like that. Let's see. How much time do I have left? I have about 8 minutes left. I like the warning message theory more and more. Now it's the time to flex to a lot of people, given the China-Russian tensions in the Middle East. Nukes are antiquated shit. Let me show you something. Zap. Yep. And you know, I had that shill basically, and he was going to other people's channels, and without even explaining what he was saying, he was just saying zap, 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 and I was just kind of like, this dude's off his rocker. And then you know, I realized he knew stuff because before I even made a connection of who I thought the actual shooter was in Aurora, he left a comment on one of my videos pertaining to somebody that had a goatee. He said, "Who opened the door?" And then later, literally like in a day or two, I saw that the actual shooter was throwing the pitch in Wisconsin and was from Wisconsin, and matched suspect description, and I was like, oh my god. And then I look at his best friend has a goatee. I'm like, oh my god. And then I remember that strange comment being left by that guy that said, who opened the door? And I'm like, oh my god, that crazy idiot knew this. And I like communicated with him. I was like, you better tell me what you know right fucking now. And he was like, ha ha ha, zap zap zap. And I was like, okay. And then that's what he kept saying. He said, Obama has space lasers, zap zap. And I was just like, oh shit, that scares me. Am I okay? And he said, no, they like you. You're crazy, like Alex Jones. And I was like, all right. So a lot of people like get mad at me, like, why do you look like that? You look like you're making us look bad. And it's kind of like, well, that's probably why I'm alive, basically. Anyway, there's that footage. I don't know what to say about that footage. I mean, his voice doesn't sound slowed down, but a lot of the smoke and the plane, a lot of that looks like it's going in slow motion. A lot of people will just be like, oh, you know, planes look like they're going in slow motion. Smoke looks like it's going in slow motion. I'm not going to like get too much into it. They did a very good job with the cover-up, but you clearly have some things going on as far as witness testimony, which suggests that directed energy weapons may have actually played a role. I mean, you've just got that catching fire. You've got another plane, same make and model, catching fire. You've got the oil tanker blowing up, catching. You've got the Arizona firefighters catching fire. You've got Colorado burning down, with Colorado literally being like, I'm going to secede from the state. And is this an attempt to keep the empire alive? I don't know. I think it's just an attempt to like change the way the empire is doing things, and possibly even just dissolve the empire while getting away with what they want to get away with. But they're finding it very, very difficult to do their piggybacking activities. And why we haven't heard from Snowden since then, that's a pretty good idea. I mean, like, they're finding it so difficult that what they had in mind is not exactly working the way they wanted it to. And I'm kind of glad that we got Snowden chased out of China, you know, because you don't want tensions to swell up between America and China. You would rather, you know, and then, you know, thank God Vladimir Putin has this disposition of, I don't want to deal with it. And then you've got him, you know, wanting to go to other countries, and Obama's looking like an idiot. It's just really kind of playing into our hands, basically. And no amount of think tanks are going to be able to conjure up another reality. The think tanks are clearly failing, and maybe even they're purposely sabotaging these situations. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, I'm sure that the specific architect of that, say, San Francisco plane crash may have come from the hands of one of the cabal members themselves, like literally pushing on a touch screen where they're burning the tail off or burning the top of the plane. And, you know, so, well, I don't see any more comments. Oh, I think the hour's up. A very good night to you guys. See you tomorrow, same time. TB at 23 is, well, we got some comments. I'm going to address those before I spread the word, Steve. A single person can destroy the world, setting the stage for changes at a pace more quickly than democracy can handle, unfortunately, bypassing normal checks and balances, enabling rampant corruption. I actually do worry about the implications of, say, hydrogen bombs, because, you know, can they create an explosive so strong that you can blackmail the entire world? So I don't know, or maybe they just have a number of hidden nukes around or something like that. But let me read this again. A single person can destroy the world, setting the stage for changes at a pace more quickly than democracy can handle, unfortunately, bypassing normal checks and balances, enabling rampant corruption. Yeah. All right, let's see. If you want to elaborate on that later, you can let me know about that. Let's see. Al Gore invented it. We're taking care of that, David. Smiley face. All right, you guys, I'm out. Very good night. See you tomorrow at 11 p.m. Eastern. TB at 23 is gone.